Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. For those keeping count, this is episode 341. We're getting very close to the 350 mark. It's only taken us about 8 years to do so. No, I think my math is right, 2018,
Yeah.
or 7 years. But my next guest hasn't appeared since episode 190. And so I'm bringing back Renae Peterson, and we're going to talk about breaking generational patterns. And I think this is important because, the things that are passed down to us
Mm,
and
mhm.
sometimes for us, but it's
Yes,
not always in a positive way, can affect how we do business, how we have our relationships, and, what we instill on the next generation. So I want to thank you for being here, and it's
for
I'm
having
glad
me.
that you're returning.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
now you're up in Canada. I'm in the United States, and sometimes there are cultural barriers. You
Mm,
know, the thing is that my ancestors came from Germany long ago,
mm,
and they came to America in the 1800s,
yeah,
and so you got 200 some plus years of generational thinking that
yeah.
stemmed from European cultures that may or may not still be
Operating.
acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, but up in Canada, you have a lot of French, you have a lot of English, you have a lot of, you know, and I think a lot of other cultures sometimes prefer Canada than they do the United States. So you have a lot of mixed generational thinking
mhm, yeah,
going on. So
it's true.
how do we break that? I can't say correct it because it's but we do want to be able to improve it.
Yeah. Well, I think the important thing to recognize too is I think when we talk about, breaking generational patterns, sometimes it's all dealt on a conscious level, right?
Mhm.
And yes, of course, consciously, our children, families, the familial patterns of how we respond, how we behave. I mean, it's those mirroring neurons, right? We're going to see it, we're going to copy it. And so of course some of those things are going to be passed down and sometimes it does make me giggle when you meet families and you meet a brother and a sister and even in completely different circumstances but the way they talk or they interact, right, it's very similar and it's just so powerful, the power of the DNA. And so a lot of my work though is like, let's take a look deeper and let's look at that DNA, those epigenetics that like are the unseen, that literally the DNA gets tagged with certain beliefs, with certain traumas, and it's literally on that DNA. And so personally, I raised two daughters and in the Peterson family, and it goes on for generations, is like they cannot forgive.
Mhm.
Like the unforgiveness, and I'm not gonna, like, for me it's super hard as well. Like I understand the principle of it, so I have to really work at it, but it's just like this genetic, tag that has played havoc throughout generations of my ancestral line, and you see it play out. And so I sat my own daughters down and I just said, hey, this is really strong within, the patterns. Like this is going to be hard, so it ends with us,
Yeah.
so it began years ago but it ends here. And so I think it's just really being cognizant of and really taking an honest look of like, what are those patterns that are really passed down? What are those behaviors? What's playing itself out, through generations, through your cousins, even through whatever. And I mean, I don't think none of us have to look too far to
Right.
really see, what that is.
Yeah.
And
Before we jumped on here, I said that
yeah,
we were going to talk about Canadian beer, and both
yeah.
of us, neither one of us really drink
I'm
much.
like, I don't drink,
However, alcoholism is
Oh yeah,
a big part of some families' generational, patterns.
absolutely.
And my wife comes from from the French culture who are big in drinking, and mine come from the German culture, again, big in drinking, and you
Yeah.
start to mix that, and it's inherent,
Oh, yeah.
you can read about all these things and, "Oh, yeah, this blood type loves alcohol," and really? Okay, we
Mhm.
gotta change that,
Yeah.
and so I stopped drinking a long time ago. My
Mm.
favorite beverage is iced tea, which probably is equally as bad for you,
Aw.
um, but you don't have the alcoholic effects, you know?
Yeah.
But,
No, it's true.
there again is that, we're taught, "Oh, my parents did it. My grandparents did it. My aunts and uncles did it. It's
Yeah.
okay for me to do it." But
Yeah.
maybe it's not okay because you don't know how to drink properly
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
responsibly.
Right, and who knows what, how that plays out, right? We know that with alcohol, there's different things that someone can have one drink and, it's causes havoc as well. So it's all familial and how it presents within those genetics. And yeah, it's all about choices. And I think with alcohol today, I mean, everyone has their own decisions around it, but with the new research around what it really does, and then if we want to talk a pattern breaking, it's just like it's one of the most accepted addicted kind of forms like of a drug, if you will, with the drinking. And so just passing that down. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not here to judge anybody, but I just think it's
Oh,
a
I will
pattern.
judge. I will ju
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just a pattern to look at, right? I mean, I worked as a palliative nurse for years, and just to see how that dynamic and the abuse associated with it, or whatever, how that played itself out in families. So
Yeah.
it's all just looking at your particular family, whatever it is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's rage, whether it's divorce, whether like mine, like whether it's unforgiveness, like whatever it is, we all have something. And I believe it's just creating that more conscious awareness of each one of us going, okay, like if I don't suit up for this battle, the next generation is going to. Like, they're going to have to fight the battles that we don't suit up for. And so it's just being a little more conscious, a little more curious of like, what is that? And what do I want to have, end with me,
Mm,
end with this genetic, you know,
yeah.
line right here, right now, so that I don't pass that on. And,
You know,
my daughter is,
you're go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah.
Well, here I was gonna say here in America, we have, a welfare system where, generations of families live
Yes.
off the backs of the government. Now, I'm sure that Canada has something similar, but here you have people that have been on the system, for 20, 30, 40 years of their lives and their kids' lives, and it's like, where do you break the pattern? Well, why should I go to work if I'm getting free money? Why should I go to work if I'm getting a free house?
Yeah.
And
That
and here's
mentality that we
right.
passed down.
And the thing is that less than 1/10 of 1% of those people that come from the system become entrepreneurs.
Mm,
Become
interesting.
million, I can't say millionaires, but become well off because there
Mhm.
is no motivation to do so.
Yeah, for
You know?
sure.
So, I think one of the things that and I don't wanna point fingers at any one politician, but I think one of the main goals is to train people that are on the system, give them skills so they
Yeah.
have, you know, uh, the motivation to go out
Even
there
more
and
than
take a
that,
better life.
too, just the skills, but, like, awaken, evoke the
Mhm,
gifts within them, right?
mhm,
It's just like, what would go unfulfilled? What is their, the imprint of legacy, or the heart calling that's imprinted on the DNA of their heart? What are they meant to fulfill here, right?
mhm,
And so even on a bigger level than that, it's just like, let's give people the opportunity to have that self-realization, or to tap deeper into what are my dreams? What is my purpose, instead of just, relying basically on survival. And
yeah,
just, I mean, because we all need each other's gifts to make the world a better place as well. So
mhm.
yeah.
And I've noticed that, over the years, social media is has was designed to bring us all closer together, that we can learn from each other. However, lately, you go to post something and you have nothing but hate
Yeah.
thrown back at you.
Yeah.
And, like, how do you empower somebody when you're just getting all that hate back?
Right, and I think, when we look at the collective consciousness around that, right? And I just think, like, once again, on the bigger scale of things, collectively, I think each one of us are being called to go, what's my part in that? Like,
Mhm,
where does it start with me? Because I think if we tackle it from like a big collective, people just get trapped in the finger pointing. Whereas if we just go, you know, what is that saying? Something like, I might not be able to make the biggest impact that I want, but it starts with me, and the ripple effect
mhm,
will, cast and impact many. And so I think if individually each one of us just start looking at ourselves and going, okay, it ends with me, like that's kind of been my favorite saying lately. It's just because it's like, what can I do? Who can I empower within my inner circle? How can I do it differently? Then I think, and we advocate for that in little ways and we model that, I think that will impact the collective by not buying into it. And it's great to bring it to attention and we talk about it, but it's like, let's really start doing something about it. Like, let's
yeah,
just be like, I will not engage in this. Or the people that are, be that voice that can bring some reason or neutrality. And it doesn't mean we don't stand for things and we don't fight for things, but there's definitely a way to do it, right? With an aspect of some emotional intelligence, that it's
right.
not in the vein of, harming other people.
And it goes, I see all these aspirations on social where someone wants to, impact 1,000,000 people,
Mm.
and that's a hefty goal. I give them kudos for that. I mean, I think everybody has to have these ridiculous, maybe unachievable goals that they go after. However, for me, it's always been help one person at a time.
Yeah, I
And it
love
goes
that.
back to that ripple effect. I
Yeah.
help one person, they help one person, they help one person, and it grows and grows. But I
Yeah.
can't help 1,000,000 people at once. And I
Yeah.
may not even be able to help 1,000,000 people in my lifetime, but I
Right.
can I can help one person at a time.
Yeah, and I think if we distill it down to that, then we don't get so overwhelmed, and then we
Right.
can actually take empowered action. Because I find today people are like, "Well, what do we do? There's nothing I can do." But it's like, no, there's totally something you can do in every interaction, in every moment, and within yourself. Like, what are you talking to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? There's this really great gym that I go to here, and I just finally looked at the girl that meets me there every morning, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing all and saying to yourself on the inside, but keep doing that, because she was just a light and brings so much joy and happiness and just vibrance. And it just, like, even just by me doing that, like, it gave her so much joy to stand in her gifts. And so I think you're right. It's just every day it's like, who do I choose to be? Who am I committed to being? And
Mhm.
it's just like really getting clarity on that, and then show up in that every day. It's like making those decisions and not having considerations for anything different when something else shows up.
Right. Yeah, and
So
I love the message that you have of empowering teen girls, to make better choices, to make, you know, just being, having their feminine leadership and their intelligence and sometimes, and not to make, this about wokeness or any of that, but I do believe that girls need to have their own sports.
totally.
I don't think they need to be diluted with, people that are transitioning in or think they need to be in a woman's sport if they're a man. Just
Hmm. Yeah.
to me, it sends the wrong signal,
Hmm.
and it doesn't allow, girls to have their own power.
Yeah. And I think too, part of the reason I'm passionate about that, when you talk about breaking cycles and patterns, well, let's look at the generational patterns that we as women have been through. You know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, really, we live in a patriarchal system. There used to be a time when women's gifts were revered. They were oracles, they were healers, you know what I mean? But then it just became almost the threat of power, if you will, or
Mm,
however that's played itself out. But it's just like, so breaking those patterns where, women, and my own journey too, of the collective pattern of just like, be the good girl, just show up, like, just be nice. don't really say what you want. And so really just also with intuition and the superpower of that each one of us have, but like even as women, like, it's a neurological, physiological, biological thing that women, that our physiology even allows us to be tapped deeper into the cues and clues of other human behavior and such. And so it's just, but for so long, and the girls that I work with, we're in the 21st century, but my goodness, we're
Yeah.
still looking outside of themselves for external validation. And so it's like when we can pull those tethers back in to the inside and have them be grounded and anchored into the place of knowing self and understanding that the most important relationship that they'll ever have is the one with themselves. And in the book I'm writing, I'm actually having a whole chapter called "You Are Your One True Love," and it's like, did our mothers teach us that? No, absolutely not, right? It was just, and I love healthy relationships with, partners and men and whatever that looks like for somebody, but it's like if you don't have a deep understanding and intimacy with yourself, how can you allow that dance with another human? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, just really breaking that pattern for young girls and women in general to not show up in those roles, but to show up in authenticity and having a strong sense of self so that they can lead
Mhm.
like from self and lead with that empowerment and to have, purpose and to be fulfilled and not just playing a role or fitting into a box. Because I mean, my goodness, I've had to break my own patterns around that, and I've had my own journey, and it's kind of what my book is about, is like, how did I really, break out of those patterns and those paradigms and those boxes that I felt like I had to fit in to really be in this sovereign place that
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in now.
Yeah, and even for me, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years,
Mhm.
and you really want to be unique to yourself. You want to have, stick to your moral compass. But then you
Totally.
have, hundreds of people saying, "Well, Rob, you can't do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I can be sarcastic. I can tell you how it is. I can fire you if I want to."
Yeah,
"No, no,
exactly.
Rob, you can't do." And so you have all these people telling you what you can't do,
Yes.
and but you have to stay true to yourself. And so
Right.
over 30 years, it's like, "Well, maybe they're right." "No, Rob, they're not." "Shut up." And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
you're although you're trying to break patterns, you're also trying to, uh, instill the ones that mean the most to you so they never get broken.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's a battle that I think a lot of people, uh, lose.
yeah, and I love
Mhm,
how you use the battle because I always say to people, "Let's suit up for that battle."
mhm,
Let's like, you wanna talk about breaking patterns? It's like, yeah, I think so many people think that we're living consciously. Like, I'm in full choice, I'm in full consciousness, but really when you break it down and you don't do the deeper subconscious work,
mhm,
um, sometimes, like, we're not in that personal integrity because we're just living up to those expectations, those roles, right? When you do the deeper work and you can clear some of that from the subconscious, then you really step into authenticity. It's just like, is that really what I believe, or have I just been doing that for safety?
mhm,
And so I think that's where a lot of work for us as the human race, as men, as women, it's like coming back into that, clearing all the limited beliefs, the false identities, the outdated identities, so that we can come back to that place of sovereignty, so we can come back to that place of authenticity. But it takes work. Like, you can't just read a book, you can't just attend a personal development class. Like, it's really diving into the deeper programming that resides within the subconscious mind. And until I really did that, that is the only time that I was able to set myself free and to break those patterns of remaining small and silent and quiet and not pursuing my dreams. And it's like, for goodness sake, I've had this book on my heart for 20 years. It's like, wow, like, and the title, the whole things, I mean, yes, it's going to be richer today, but my goodness, until I could get my own self out of the way and break the patterns of, oh, Renae, your voice, doesn't matter, or whatever those limited beliefs that were stuck in my subconscious mind. I mean, and then therefore I'm breaking those patterns from my own daughters, for my own, familial line. And so it's really empowering. And at the same time, to even have my daughter come to me and to be conscious enough to say, Mom, thank you so much for the work that you have done, that
Mhm.
you've able to pave the way for me to live
Yeah.
more authentically, you know? And so it's really powerful when we just get more curious about these things that are happening within our lives, and really the pain always has the purpose, and all of it is just to bring us back home to ourselves, into that deeper alignment.
Mhm. And when I help clients with their books, a lot of times they don't even know that they want to write a book, or they'll say, "Well, I've been doing this job for so many years. Why would somebody want to listen to what I
Mm,
have to
there
write
we go.
or
Yeah,
read what I have to write?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. You
yeah,
have stories,
there you go.
and
Yeah,
people, want to know about you." And
exactly.
and sometimes it's not just about you think, "Well, I only have a few people that will listen." But, once that book gets out there, they're like, "Wow, I didn't know you did this. You're such an
Mhm,
inspiration," and then
mm.
next thing you know, you're doing 55 books.
I know, that's amazing, Rob, that's
It's
mhm.
people always ask me, "Well, Rob, I don't even know what I'm gonna say in one book. How'd you do it in all those books?" Look,
Yeah,
like I said, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I have stories, lots
mhm.
of stories, and there's so many stories that I could probably fill a library full of
Yeah,
books, and
it's
and people don't
beautiful.
realize that.
Yeah,
Most books are 12 to 13 chapters, maybe a little bit more, a little less, depending on how you write.
yeah,
But you focus on that chapter focuses on one segment of your life, that one story of your life. And
yeah,
so if you continue to write,
yeah.
how many people
And it's
could you inspire?
healing. Like, that's what's so magical about it too. It's like putting my story and my wisdoms and all the things and why I do what I do. It's like it's been such a powerful healing
Yeah.
journey for me. And
I
so
don't I
it's just
don't
like,
I don't need to pay somebody to
yeah,
a psychologist to understand me. I write the stories down.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's therapy, but
Yeah.
you know, I break a lot of my patterns by just being present in the day.
Beautiful.
I-
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
a lot of people say, "Well, Rob, life just gets me depressed, and I'll stay in bed all day long." Yes, I could do that too,
Mhm.
but eventually, you got to get up. You got to face the world. You got to be able to unleash your power.
Yeah.
And eventually, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But you got to be motivated to do it. I
Yeah.
can't motivate you. You can read my book and say, "Oh, right, Rob, that was awesome."
Yeah.
Okay, what then? Take
Yeah.
action. You
Yeah.
know. And that's the problem with a lot of people buy books. They sit on shelves, they collect dust. And I say,
Yes.
"Well, what did you like about my book?" "I don't know." "Did you read
Mm.
it?" "No, it's on my bookshelf."
Yeah.
"Well,
But
thanks
you
for
know, I love
supporting
the
me. I
yeah.
like the money, but I really
Yeah.
want you to do something."
Right. And I'd love to challenge the idea that too, it's just like, because people are like, just do something, just do something, just do something. But I also feel like in my work, it's like doing some of that, like subconscious rewiring and stuff. It's like, what is the operational belief that is stopping you from moving forward? So it's just like, that's the deeper work that I like to do, because sometimes that is even the generational pattern. That's the pass down,
Mhm,
right? Or that's the decision that they made in their mind at a certain time within a heightened experience that imprinted into the subconscious mind. And it's like, how do we get our power back from really doing that deeper work of understanding what is the belief at play? Because we know that belief is identity, and whatever we believe about ourselves has a cascading effect to the results that we have in our life. And
mhm.
so I think it's just those deeper dives that really allow us to
And I think one of the self-limiting beliefs is always, you know, I will do it, um, when the time is right.
yeah,
When is that? If
yeah,
I said I'm gonna write my book when the time is right, it would have never happened.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the time's never right because life is always
Right, and then, well, Rob, I can't do it because it's not perfect yet. I can't release
Mhm.
this product. You know how many of my books aren't perfect?
Yeah,
No. Good is
yeah,
good enough. Get the stuff out there. Let
yeah,
people know who you are. You can always go back and fix something,
that's true.
but
Yeah,
honestly, most people aren't gonna pick up on the perfection anyway.
yeah, yeah, it's a trap, for
Yeah.
sure. It's a
So,
trap.
and there are a lot of people, exiting high school and college, and they're getting these they're accepting jobs,
Mm,
and sometimes they're not in the field that they want.
yeah,
And that's, I good. Take
yeah,
those jobs because, here's the thing is that I started a carpet cleaning business in 1995. My wife thought, "Huh, I'll give him 6 months." You know, even she was betting against me,
yeah, there
um,
you go.
because, it wasn't something that I thought I was gonna succeed at.
Mm,
Pushed and I pushed and I pushed, and I kept that business going and being profitable for 19 years.
yeah, wow.
And then I sold it and went full time into consulting, even though I had this business. I had started this
Yeah,
business in 2001.
yeah,
I needed the one to gain the experience, to gain the power,
yes.
in order for me to be better than I was. And I think our young kids today, they're getting out of high school, they're getting out of college, and they're saying, "Well, this will be my forever job."
Mm,
No,
yeah,
that job is not going to give you what you want. It's going to
yeah,
give you what you need.
there you go. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
that's powerful.
it,
Yeah, and
it,
just
it,
to
it's
there's always choice, right?
right.
It just what's the next best choice or next best choice? Or it's like, yeah, it's and just really instilling those mindsets in to go, everything's just for growth and learning. So it's like, what did I learn and where do I want to go next? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
powerful.
how do people find you? Where do they go?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram at It's Renae Peterson, Facebook Renae Peterson. My websites are renaepeterson.com. And yeah, I'm changing my Academy for Teen Girls name, but you can find it right now at beautifulinsideacademy.com. But going to be changing that to something else. I'm in the middle of kind of redoing some branding while my book's coming out and just getting some new foundations. So, but yeah, I've been doing this for over 2 decades and I would love to connect with people women, teens who are really ready to break those patterns and really it's about standing in sovereignty. It's a
Mhm.
powerful word, but it's so great when you get there and it's so exciting to be on that journey.
And see, this is what makes you an e-hero because, you're it's not always about you. It's about
No.
the community. It's about your legacy. It's about what you wanna
Yes.
leave behind. And, I've been sharing legacy for years and years and years. And, I wrote a book back in December about legacy and you know, it's always fascinating to me. The businesses have been around for a long time.
Mm,
It's not always about making money. It's
no.
about, giving back to the community, making sure that the next generation has the skill set to continue
Yes.
on. And that's
Yeah.
what you do.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad that there are heroes like you out there that are out there for the
Thank you.
betterment of society.
Thank you. That means so much. Yeah, it's just like right answering the call and just following and you're right, it is legacy. So
Mhm. And with
really
that, we're going to wrap it up, but we'll see everybody on the next episode. Adios.
awesome. Thank you, Rob.